So this is the August 18th edition of the weekly community call for CHAOSS. Welcome everyone. I'm glad you're here. It's good to see everybody. The agenda is linked in the chat, but I will do that again just in case anybody missed that. And if you haven't done so, please add your name under attendees. Tell us how you're doing. I'm very happy because my leaky ceiling is now fixed. So no more.
But you had a leaky ceiling?
Yeah, you know, bathtubs that leak through. So.
Yep, no, I've had that before too.
Really fun.
It's great. It's wonderful when you look up and you see water.
Right.
Really
well,
a good feeling.
I thought it was the dogs that had peed on the ground. So I was actually glad that it was not that. Yeah, it was a little easier to clean up if it's just water. And less smelly, you know, and you do the smell. I don't know. Anyway, sorry, yes. I digress. I'm glad this, can you edit this part out? That'd be awesome. Not if you can.
No, it's weird. You can't edit the first few minutes.
Fantastic. Anyway, I hope everybody's doing good. But let's jump in and get started. So we're going to put, I think it's a good idea to put our students up earlier in the agendas because I feel like they were always getting the short end of the stick, which is not fair, and I don't like that. So we'll start out with our Google Summer of Code students. If there's anybody on that wants to give us a quick update.
There isn't right now.
I was going to say, I don't think there is. All right, fair enough. Just so everyone knows, we do link to recent updates for 2 of our students every CHAOSS Weekly newsletter. So if you read that, like I know you all are reading it religiously 100% every time, you'll see every week, you'll see 2 more updates. So that's on there if you are curious. So let's move along to the Google season of docs. We're excited to have Jaskrat and Shoya as our 2 season of docs students. So thank you for participating, and we're super excited. Jaskrat is going to be working on our community handbook, and Shoya is going to be working on the D&I badging documentation. So we're really excited to have you both a part of CHAOSS officially, and yeah. Anything to add to that, anyone?
Yeah, I mean, if Jaskrat, you want to say anything, that'd be great.
Well, the very first thing is like I'm very happy to connect with you all today, and the very first like thanks for giving me this opportunity, and it's indeed to be a part of this CHAOSS community in the Google Season of Docs program. I really look forward working with the project on the white handbook, like the handbook for the CHAOSS community, and I'm sure like you're gonna have like come up with like I'm sure like I'm gonna come up with some really interesting aspect of the handbook for the community. I just wanted to know like how and like how do you plan, like how the community do you plan to begin with this particular stuff, since we're gonna have the 1 month for the community bonding stuff. So like how do you want us to begin with this? So maybe a quick call with the mentors if it's possible, or maybe a brief on this particular thing if it's possible.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea. So did you say there's a month of community bonding? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And how long does Season of Docs go? When does it end, Jaskrat?
Well, I think like this is gonna be till 6th of December, I guess.
Okay.
So like it's gonna be like same for the 3 months program. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I think you are in a big advantage because you had done so much work exploring the community handbook, and you had been very open about it for so long. I mean, you were very transparent and shared your thoughts, and so I mean, I think it's a good idea that you mentioned that maybe we should meet as mentors. But in terms of community bonding, I think you've done pretty well so far, to be honest with you. I think a lot of people know who you are. So that's cool.
Okay. Yeah.
So maybe
So,
I can send out an email to just find a time that we could all meet that would be convenient for you and other people as well. and we can just kind of talk what that first month could look like. I'm guessing you can probably start on some of the community handbook work sooner rather than later.
Sure, sure. So like
Okay, cool.
I would be looking forward to, yeah, yeah.
Yep. I'll just send a note and I'll make sure that everybody gets connected. And I can probably include Shoya too. That way we can just have that conversation once.
Yeah, Shaya and
Sure.
I are, we have, and Asa have Thursday at 9 a.m. CDT already built out. We could also, I think, meet during that time if you want, if it's available for everybody. I can send it a calendar invite to everybody if you like.
Josh Karat, would Thursday at 9 a.m. US Central work?
Well, Thursday 9 a.m. Is it IST time or like Central UT time? Well, what's the time zone?
It's 2 hours before this meeting on Thursday.
Okay. Yeah, well, that works for me.
Okay, I'll send it a calendar invite.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, sure.
All right, and that is a nice segue into the D&I badging. Matt S., take it away.
All right. We are strong into our second palette testing right now. We've actually gone through the whole process with one event already. So let me give a little bit of background. We are doing events only for the second palette testing and probably for launch, so that we can focus on quality rather than quantity. And we are working on kind of updating and getting people's feedback on how the process works and getting ready for launch at that point. So we're really excited. We are a little short on reviewers, so we'd like to ask that anybody who wants to be involved and has the bandwidth for that, email me at that email I've included there. And we've already got a lot of really good feedback. We did a meetup event, kind of mock event based off of the Beans internet currency from the late 90s. So that was kind of fun. And if anybody wants to submit any events, just go ahead and send me an email. And we're really excited to get ready for launch. We're going to be considering virtual events after the pilot testing before we go into launch with maybe a different set of metrics. Well, definitely some different metrics, but we have a lot more to prepare for, and we're getting ready for that for launch. About mid-September is what we're looking at now. And that's all I have for badging at the moment.
Matt, I had put a few comments in for that review, just in terms of kind of alignment of things. And
yeah, I did. I responded. We actually are creating our own branch, and we're going to be making all the edits to that and then kind of pushing it up once the pilot testing is over.
Okay. Because I think that again, keeping it super simple is really important for people, whether you're a reviewer or a submitter. So, and I think I had seen it as a reviewer just a few places where there was a little misalignment between what I was supposed to be reviewing and what seemed like was being asked for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then I'm looking at Elizabeth. Should we if we're gonna do the like mid-September, say a month from now, that we're looking at kind of doing a soft start on this, where events could actually submit a request for a badge. We are going to need to recruit reviewers. And I mean, we probably need to go outside of the CHAOSS project.
Okay. Matt S., is there, I have only done the submission. I haven't done the reviewing, but there's documentation for how to review, obviously, and do we have any kind of do we have an application process for the reviewers to go through?
We have an application process that comes in the form of a pull request.
Okay. So if I'm like someone random that is not in CHAOSS and I want to be a reviewer, I can just submit a pull request?
Yeah, we've got a documentation on how to do that. I'm not sure if it's made it
Okay.
all the way out to the main repo yet, but
Okay.
we got kind of a guide on how to. You just add your name to the list, kind of like the original process for submitting a project or event would be. But you just add your name to the list, and then once your name is added to the list, it'll just start assigning you to. Once that pull request is merged, you'll be in the bin for being assigned to different events and things like that. We don't have I guess the process isn't as well defined as we want for launch, which is one of the things we're going to work on during this pilot testing, but that's important. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, because we'll need to recruit reviewers before we launch to the public to submit their events. So at some point we can maybe set up a timeline of like when can we start to recruit reviewers, and then when we can whatever. And I'll do whatever I can help as far as outreach and contacting people.
Okay, I'll make that high priority and send you and Matt an email once I have that finished.
Okay.
Are there qualifications to be a reviewer?
We have defined qualifications, but at this point, it's been more of a handpicked basis. I think qualifications is something that's going to come with the pull request process. That's something that might be a good thing to define during our next meeting about this as well.
There aren't qualifications to be an academic reviewer, so why start now?
Well, we have the basic requirements for submitting an event. I think it's only fair that we have basic requirements for a reviewer. Yeah.
Just for transparency purposes.
Yeah. So Matt, could you maybe think about the timeline that Elizabeth had mentioned? And could you also just draft like an outreach email that we could send that would point to the become a reviewer process that you were talking about?
Okay. I can do that today.
Okay.
And we also have, I think I have 2 people that are identified as wanting to review for not the pilot testing, but the actual project.
Okay.
So that might be helpful as well to have that starting point.
So the process is somebody obviously submits an event, and then reviewers are assigned to the event. And is there like a meta reviewer? So let's say Elizabeth and I do the review, and we're totally in line with one another, right? That's pretty easy. But let's say that Elizabeth was like more diligent than I was, and I missed some things. So we're out of alignment with one another. Is there somebody, or how does that problem get solved?
Yeah, so we have a couple commands that are run to create the badge and one to end the issue or close the issue and move it to a pull request. And that is done by the moderator. We're also under the idea that the moderator handles discrepancies as well.
So who are the moderators? Are they CHAOSS people?
The CHAOSS people are under more of the role of maintainer, but we can be crossover with moderation as well. The moderator is more of a role that that's definitely a handpick role right now, but it's a role of this person understands CNI pretty well, and they want to be helpful in the situations that require leadership.
Okay. I'm thinking, did you have people in mind for moderator, that role?
Yes.
Okay. Because I do think they should be people who have kind of been watching this for a long time. And then as the reviewers have questions, the moderator can either answer the question directly or know how to get in touch with, like, say, you, or they know how to solve the problem. And if we had moderators from external, that might be a role that they just wouldn't be able to handle.
I think moderator is pretty much internal. Unless you
Okay.
have somebody that we really know and trust outside of the organization.
Okay. Because it sounds like the moderator is going to have to be pretty familiar with maybe the history and the process.
It would at
of what's
least take
going
a
on
call
here?
if they weren't familiar. It would take a couple calls to get them acquainted.
Okay. And so how many moderators do you plan on having?
At the moment, we're looking at having 2 until
Okay.
we get indication that we need, like if we have 5 events open at once, we're going to need
Okay.
more than 2 moderators.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to help in that regard.
Okay.
For sure.
I wasn't going to tell you, but we had you in mind for one. So,
Am I one of the 2?
Yes.
Well, then I didn't increase the number at all.
I mean, I meant, well, we had a lot of people in mind to ask for a moderator, but we didn't.
Okay.
You were one of the people we were going to ask anyway. So.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool.
So efficient. Problem solved before it was even a problem.
And I might have some dog barking going on in the background. Do we have, we probably want to have a web page that, it could be pretty simple and it might list who the moderators are, who the agreed upon reviewers are, that kind
Our
of thing.
plan for this this launch is to have a page that says, it gives an overview, kind of like a lot of other pages, like the Augur page at the Gomorrah Lab section page. It gives an overview. It gives ideas on what's going on with like who's in what position, stuff like that, as far as moderators go. But then it will also say, click here to apply for an event badge, and then it'll direct you towards either virtual or in-person events with some kind of criteria for that. So that's our plan for that kind of the hierarchy for the website.
Okay, and I do think we should have the moderators and the reviewers, kind of like the editorial board. Everybody who has agreed to help.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions for Matt? All right.
I have one. So
Yes.
I was kind of thinking for the applicant seeing the reviewers comment, not comment, but the reviewers check. So let's say the reviewers are to check that this does not actually satisfy this. So I think if the applicant should not see the checks but can see the comments, I don't know if so we don't have a scenario where, okay, Matt actually did not check mine, okay, marking his name, and probably it could cause a conflict or something. I don't know if you get my point.
Oh, you mean like accidentally checking the wrong checklist?
Yeah, like the applicant not seeing the reviewer's checklist but can see the comments.
Oh, well, our fix for that is that the checklist can't be checked or unchecked by the people who aren't contributors on the project. So if I were to be an applicant from outside of the organization and I come in and submit for a badge, I can't edit those review checklists as they go. It's only the reviewers that can do that part.
Ruth, are you also asking if this is a blind review process? Like do the
Yeah, something like that. Also, if a blind review process where the applicant does not see the review checklist, not just about like being able to edit, but is applicant going to be seeing the review checklist?
and be able to connect it back to a specific reviewer. Right. So if I don't get my event badge, am I going to blame Matt?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to ask. Like,
Okay. Sorry for misunderstanding there. That's kind of the one aspect of the project being open and transparent, is that you will be able to trace it back to who said it and what they said. But I think that's okay, at least for the time being. Do we have any other thoughts on that?
So we've been pushing, so I guess a couple of points. So thanks for bringing this up, Ruth. In terms of being able to see who the reviewers are, we've always pushed for being open and transparent. And the idea is not to blame somebody for not checking something, but to work with the reviewer and the applicant to either find a solution to something that wasn't checked, I guess, in this case, or to have an opportunity to easily speak to the reviewer, such that the reviewer may have missed something, which is very humanly possible. So we've always gone towards transparency and no blinding, because this is meant to be a developmental process in terms of helping projects and events improve their D&I. In terms of the applicant seeing the check boxes, I think this was also one of your questions, Ruth. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea. So I like the idea of, it's basically a rubric, right? So the checklist is a way to, the reviewer is evaluating the application, and being transparent to the applicant as to how the review is going to occur. Totally, I think it's a great idea. I have no problem with that. Again, it's meant to be developmental. So the more we can start by knowing each other and start by kind of working towards the same goals, the better. Because if the applicant and the review are off a little bit, if like what the applicant thinks they're doing and what the reviewer thinks they're reviewing, if those are off, we have to bring those together ultimately anyway in the process. And so the sooner we can get those aligned, the better. That's my opinion.
I would also just add,
I get the point.
oh, go ahead. Sorry, Ruth, I'm sorry.
You
I
can
was
go
just going to
ahead.
say, to that point, as someone who has been a target of, harassment is a strong word, but if someone doesn't get a badge and they're not happy about that, I think there is a potential for some repercussions on the reviewer, even if it is open, and that it's clear that they were in the right. I would also maybe just add that it might be a good opportunity for moderators to step in and just smooth that over if possible. So that might be an additional task that we add on to that, because I can foresee that becoming an issue with someone who feels very strongly about their event and takes it very personally, instead of in the spirit with which this review is supposed to be given. So yeah, that would just be, I think that's a really good point, Ruth. Like, there is some potential for some backlash if there is someone that isn't very happy with the results that they get for their badge.
Makes me think, should we have a code of conduct for the review process that states something along the lines of, this is a developmental process, this is meant to improve the ways that we all think about diversity and inclusion in our events and then subsequently our projects. It's expected that you behave in a professional manner, something along these lines. I don't know what that would look like, but
yeah, definitely a code of conduct or some sort of contract that you agree to when you submit to the event. Badging.
And we might also want to think about an appeals process or something if the event organizer doesn't agree with the review, or has complaints. I don't know if we want to go that far and make it that official, but even internally having a process already laid out for what happens if if that is brought up, or if someone challenges and wants to have an appeal or have more, I don't know, more reviewers or something. I don't know. It just might be nice to work that out prior to that becoming an issue.
Yeah. Something that I want to note there is that we're working out the semantics of that process, but we're building that process. Right now, it begins with the badge being, the result kind of being created for the badge, and the badge being created, and then the moderator asks the user, the submitter, the applicant, if they want to continue with this one, or they'd like to talk about it a little more. And that's kind of the beginning of that. We want to prompt them for if they have feedback, and then if they're okay with the badge and they agree with that and they consent to it, then they have the badge at that level for this year. But it's a kind of a long-standing process right now. We want to make that a little, maybe either more automatic or shorter.
Matt, do you have a sense of the metrics that are used as part of the process, the number of them that are subjective measures? So for example, like the code of conduct being available online, that's kind of a yes, no kind of thing. Even things I think like the event providing diversity access tickets seems clearer to me. Are there particular metrics that you think might be problematic and open for interpretation?
There are a couple that I can think of, a couple line items in like the review checklist that I can think of, like one that you had actually brought up in the review process was that we don't ask for their process, but we had asked them to explain. We had asked the reviewer to say if they had a good process for picking their speakers for speaker diversity, but we were working out a lot of those in the new branch, and as we see the problems, we're picking them out. But are you saying you want less subjection in the review process? Okay.
Yes. It's based on this conversation. It seems like that would be easier. I mean, if the entire thing was a judgment call by the reviewer, that would be pretty tricky.
That's how it started, to be honest.
Yeah, but what Elizabeth believes, if we start saying things like your selection process is good or bad.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah,
that would be pretty tricky to determine.
Okay, we'll take this into account too.
Yeah, and I think my suggestion would be to definitely err on the side of just objective measures. Mm-hmm. And over time, it would probably be easier to open them up a little bit.
Okay.
If we feel like it's just not providing enough insight.
Okay. That sounds good.
I don't know what other people think about that.
I agree. If we have them objective, it's easier to mitigate any disagreement by saying, hey, you just have to do these things. It's easy. Let's work together and help you.
So will the project submitter who wants the badging, will they get the detailed feedback that what are they missing in the review, like in the process, so that they can improve, or will be just okay?
Yeah, ideally.
Any other comments, questions?
I did notice, Tola, I see you here, and I think this is probably the last day of your outreach internship. Did you want to, I just want to say I appreciate you for being around. Did you have anything you wanted to say about that too?
Yeah, I'm actually short of words because I want to appreciate everyone here and for being supportive. It's so sad that it's coming to an end, but I'm not gone though. I'm still here. Like, yeah, still part of the CHAOSS community. Yes, but I'll still be contributing more of what I can to the translation content here at CHAOSS. So super. Thank you everyone for being supportive. Salah, Matt Snell, Matt G, Georg, Elizabeth, everyone. I really appreciate. Yeah.
And we appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for all of the things you've done. It was a pleasure working with you.
Yeah, Tola, you were actually going to continue on with the translation work that you started. So it's hard to get that stuff off the ground and get our bearings on what we're going to do. So of course, we'd love to have you involved in the project ongoing. That goes without saying. So
Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool.
So yes, hopefully we'll see you more after today, because that would be very sad if we did not see you anymore, because you've been a tremendous help to the project. We really appreciate it. We really do. So please come back.
Yeah, sure. I'm not going.
Good. Okay, so let's move on to the next item, which is it looks like the community reports.
yeah, so that's me. I'm just going to show something really quickly here. So this is, so this is what the community reports would start looking like a little bit. This white spot over here would be the logo for the community. So this is the community report of the CHAOSS community, and I didn't feel like putting the CHAOSS logo there. So, so this is from Georg. So Georg had shared this earlier, and I'm just taking the text that you had provided, Georg, for both of these visuals. And then I'll have to play with spacing a little bit. Georg, I may end up shortening some of these text blocks if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Just to make it fit a little bit. And then the idea was that Sean would have two right here. I don't know what people think of this kind of back and forth kind of look. Is that confusing? Do you think that this text goes with that and this text goes with that?
So I did have that impression. We need to play with the white space and the formatting a little bit to make sure everyone understands what goes together.
I could probably squeeze this text in to be the size of the figure and kind of bridge them together a little bit better. But I think with these horizontals, we have basically two choices. One was this kind of layout. The other is a visual with a wide description below. We just basically have four rectangles going down. So that's the other option as well. How about this? I'll kind of present both of them, and you can see. But this is it. So I just need to get Sean's visuals and Sean's descriptions. And then we also, if you recall, we wanted to create, and I'll start working on this too, a glossary of terms. So at least a glossary of the metrics that are appearing in here. So just obviously commits would be one of them. Issues, closed issues would be another. So I just kind of pointing people as to what the metrics are that exist here. So that's it. People have questions or thoughts on that?
I have a question about the glossary. How is that different from the text we provide?
I think the thought was because Sean's are going to be these heavily composite metrics. And so just helping unpack that a little bit. But if we can take care of it in the text, that would be great, because then we could stick more to the one pager, which I am absolutely in love with, as all of you know. I don't like more pages. So, I mean, if you think that what I had shown was sufficient enough, then I'm okay with that. And we do have that thing at the bottom too. I don't know if you saw that. Put that back up here.
Metrics are from the CHAOSS.Community.Metrics. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, it is there anyway, and if people want to do any digging, I suppose it would be simpler to not have the glossary at this point.
On the logos,
Uh-huh.
Grimoire Lab needs the Grimoire Lab name, if possible, added underneath or next to it.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then it
Do you
would
have enough?
be,
Do you have? Is there one that says that? I don't want to just font it myself.
no, we don't. I will ask.
I'll use Comic Sans then.
Our child would very much appreciate that. And then the other thing was, right now it's not clear how those logos relate to the report, and maybe adding something like this report was created with, and then the logos.
Totally fair. Yep, good idea. I'll play around with that too. Maybe next time I can come up with like a variety of different versions.
Also,
Yeah.
sorry. Also, it's not completely clear to me where I know that the project logo is going to be in the top left-hand corner, but even with that project logo there, it's not completely clear to me where these metrics are coming from. Could we include maybe a list of URLs for the repos that informed these visualizations?
We could. It'll start adding things to a second page. I mean,
for example, with Chaos Community, we've got all of the stuff that's in the Chaos organization, and then we also have Augur and Grimoire Lab. So, I mean, is it all of that stuff together that is providing these numbers?
You know what we could do is there's a request that comes across, so they're going to be filling out that form, right? And it creates a Salesforce record that actually contains all of the repos. We could actually just print out that record. I mean, because that has the repos on it. So this is basically saying, here's the record that you gave us, here's the report.
I agree with that 100%, because if they're sharing it with other people in their orgs, that would be perfect for them to say, oh, these are the ones we requested, clear, for anyone else that wasn't in that process.
We're to say, yep. Would that help, Kevin? It's not something you're seeing here. Okay.
Yes,
cool.
definitely.
Okay. And then it's not something we have to do other than just print off that email and virtually staple it to the back of this thing. Okay. And then I guess, Georg, too, I had one question for you on this. So I know that you were using Cauldron to produce this.
Yes.
Cauldron. Does Cauldron have a different logo that you would want to?
Yes.
It does. It does.
It does have a different logo.
So do you actually want to use the Cauldron logo?
I think that would be more accurate.
Okay.
It's still the Grimoire Lab technology under the hood.
Yep.
But I don't feel like we should add two logos. So Cauldron would be the more accurate logo.
Okay. All right. Do you have that logo that you can give me in nice?
I do.
In nice form. Thanks. I don't have to go on the internet and do a screenshot of it, kind of thing. So, all right, cool. Thank you. That's it for me.
All right. Anybody else questions on community reports?
Thanks for moving it forward, Matt.
Okay, we have 8 minutes left. The to-do survey, it looks like we want to actually work on that. Is that right? Whoever put that on here?
No, I put it on there. It was given time. The agenda was smaller when I put it on there. So.
Okay, I was going to suggest that we jump up, skip over that real quick, and then just because we do have some other things to talk about, and then we'll come back if we have time in our 8 minutes. How's that?
Can I just, for the people who are familiar with the to-do survey, one of the things, if you could think about as to what we actually get out of doing something like this. So it takes work, and we're going to collect data, and is it just to report back the data? Do we actually want to, you don't have to answer this now. Is it, is it just to provide the results? Is it to actually change the way that we work? Is it, I don't know. So that's all. So if you could think about that for next week.
Okay, we will think about that. Okay, so the next item, I'm pretty sure Sean put on here, but I don't think he's actually on the call. So
I can speak to that one.
Perfect. Awesome. Yes, Kevin.
I was part of that discussion. So the spreadsheet, as we all know, is one of the few places where all of the working groups kind of collaborate together. One of the issues that has kind of come up is that some metrics are kind of duplicates that are being handled in other working groups. So in the risk working group meeting this last week, we were talking about kind of how we handle those metrics that end up being identified as a duplicate. It's being worked on in common. Do we want to keep them on our list? Is there the possibility that this metric is going to appear again on the list at a later date if we start deleting them from the list? So we started talking about other basically tags or categorizations that we could possibly add to some of these metrics. And one of them that we talked about was possibly a duplicate tag, where if the metric is a duplicate of a metric that's occurring in another repo, we can just mark it as a duplicate, but we want to keep it in that spreadsheet so that it doesn't come up again at a later date. Like, we understand that this is a duplicate and it's being worked on elsewhere. And then the other tag that we talked about a little bit was possibly an under revision tag format, because right now we just have released or working on. So do we want to differentiate between metrics that are being revised rather than a new metric being released?
So I have some comments on this. So if you look at the spreadsheet, I'll share my screen.
And I did put the link in the
yeah
weekly meetings thing.
So if anybody would like to comment on how much prettier the spreadsheet looks, you are more than welcome to do that, because I spent time making it cleaner. Look at that. Isn't that nice?
Gorgeous.
Yeah, well, I put the green ones at the top, right? They were all like scattered throughout. It was driving me crazy. So, do you see these in rows 3 and 4? Moved, like when a metric moves, or sometimes a metric has become a filter as part of another metric. And I think Kevin has brought up a couple situations. I stopped because we had talked about adding these things as well, but I stopped because I felt like it was getting complicated. And I felt like we're always just one like edge case away from needing a new drop down thing. And one of the nice things about the spreadsheet is that we can bring it up honestly in any working group. And I think from my experience, everybody understands it really quickly. And so my only hesitation for adding more drop-down stuff, not that it's incorrect or is a bad thing, but it just creates complications, or I don't know what the right word is here, but it makes this more complicated.
I agree that it makes it more complicated. And looking at the nature of those gray items, is they are metrics that, in my opinion, shouldn't even be listed in the list anymore, because they're not things we're actively working on. They're not things that we are planning to advance or release. They've moved on. They live somewhere else now. And I don't think this spreadsheet is where we need to keep track of the history of our work.
Where would we keep track of the history of our work? Because part of the problem is that you know, sometimes it takes us a little while to figure out if we've already had a conversation about this metric or if the work is being done elsewhere.
Or even many a times there is a metric which is like important to have it in the focus area, but that is being used in or developed in another working group. But if we don't include in the list, it will keep on popping, okay, this is the metric we are missing and we need to have a focus. So instead of just like finding out whether other working group is working on it, we just have a cross reference that yes, this is a metric. It doesn't need to be popped again and again in the conversation, but it has been worked in that area and we can cross-reference it. This is how it came up, like lines of code is an evolution metric, but for risk, it is very important to have lines of code. If we not list it here, it'll again come up in a future conversation that, okay, we need to look at the lines of code and there's no metric for it. So if there is a metric and a reference, that's all we need as a like, so that we don't start conversation again and again on the same metric we don't see in the list.
We do have, so why does considering not hold this?
Considering is like we are going to work on it, but that metric is already worked in another group. We are just cross-referencing it here, that the work is done, it is there, we can just refer it over there.
Well, but then just don't have it, if it's somewhere else, just have it over in that the other place. Like if lines of code is in risk, then just, why do we need a pointer in evolution that says lines of code is in risk?
Because both the groups are continuously using this and important to both of these groups. And if it is not in the list, it will come up again that, okay, we want to develop this metric. And if there is a reference, there's no need to develop it, it's just a pointer.
I think that as the list grows, it's going to be harder to remember which metrics are in other groups. So to that point, Vinod, I think I personally agree with the fact that it should have a pointer just as a reminder, and maybe even put it under its own section at the bottom, just like other metrics or archived or something that just is
maybe cross-reference metric.
Right. Just
bottom.
Because it comes up a lot, and as we get more contributors that don't have the historical reference or context, then yeah, you're right. Like these things keep coming up, and it's a good reminder that, oh yeah, that's right, that was over in risk.
And this
so you don't have to try to remember what metrics are in each group. We're already at 46. I mean, we could have 100 soon. So yeah.
And I would like to repeat that this is one of the very few documents we have where all of the working groups coordinate together. So it would kind of make sense to have that on this document.
All right. I mean, that makes sense. So the cross-referencing, I think there was also an issue, I know we're over time, but there was also an issue of historical conversations, which I think is different than cross-referencing. Is that right, Kevin?
We talked about, so that's part of the conversation of, do we want to cross-reference it and add it as a duplicate metric and point it to the other working group, or do we want to delete it from our list, right? And if we delete it from our list, then we lose that conversation. So that's another argument in favor of just tagging it as a duplicate or referencing it to another working group, right? Just to maintain that this is a communication inclusivity metric. However, it's being handled in this other working group.
Okay, so as long as I guess I'm becoming more comfortable with it, as long as like it's a metric that, as Georg pointed out, is kind of moving through the chain towards release, as opposed to just a dumping ground of metric ideas, like in prior conversations, because we had a repo that was called GitHub. We had this thing that was all of our metrics, and it was a graveyard. for metrics, and it just didn't work very well. So we've kind of been down the road of trying to capture all ideas and all historical conversation, and it was kind of a mess.
Alternatively, we could put in a process that we say, okay, anytime we have a new idea for a metric, first we have to search and see if it's already been done and if it's already happening somewhere else. And then that's just part of the process that we do. Maybe we're doing that already, I don't know. But maybe we make that more of an ingrained thing that we just search first.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, like a human ask.
Right. And to Matt's previous point also, this spreadsheet shouldn't be a collection of just ideas that we have for metrics. These should be metrics that we've given some thought to before they're added to the repo, right? It shouldn't just be a bucket of ideas.
Cool.
Okay, well, we're over time, so we'll go ahead and end. I guess we'll sort that out in the upcoming weeks. Thanks everyone for participating and for coming to say hi, and we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Thank you.